You've tuned in to Bellingham Podcast Media Tech for the week of July 23rd, 2017, episode 46. From the northwest of the Northwest, I am Chris Powell.
And from the city by the Salish Sea, I am AJ Barce. On this episode, Chris and I are going to slow things down and go undigital. That's right, we're talking analog. All that and more next on BPM Tech.
Happy mid-July. How the heck are you, AJ?
I'm sweltering, but that's okay. How you doing, Chris?
Treading heat. Yes, we're surviving the heat and enjoying this beautiful summer in Bellingham, 98225-679, whatever the zip code may be, wherever you're listening. But yeah, it's been a pretty good week, and we are not going to be talking about the new shiny tech.
Shiny.
In some cases, but nothing too extreme. There'll be some tech that caught our eye later on, but we've got some analog related things to talk about.
AnaLOG.
Yes, log is a key word there.
So the reason why we're playing on the AnaLOG and the slowing things down a little bit, taking it down a notch, and getting back in touch with our more human side with our tools that we call technology. Chris, you have a new acquisition that is gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you very much. In the lines of Henry David Thoreau Tech, and one for journaling and such like that. No, actually, I wanted to. I've been researching a lot about this. I've been kind of dabbling in various forms of notebooks and jotting some things down. I found, and I've done some research on this company based in New York City, and I wanted to work on a combination, my own equation of my own customized memory logging or just information with pen and notebook. So there's a company in New York City called Baron Fig.
Baron as in like the Red Baron.
Yeah, and Fig as in the Newtons. So basically, Baron Fig is a company that their tagline is tools for thinkers, and they create notebooks. They're creating wearables such as bags and messenger bags and such that they're coming out with. They have a new podcast coming out called Eureka, but I really enjoy their Baron Fig Confidant notebook. It started off on a Kickstarter, and in which they had a modest goal of $15,000. However, at the end of their 30-day Kickstarter period, they got over $165,000 and sold nearly 9,000 notebooks to thousands of customers.
Whoa.
So that was a big splash. Basically, they asked a lot of people and were like, what would you like in a notebook? Well, when you crowdsource something, you get some popularity.
Right.
Basically, and I did a little bit of research on this, Baron Fig, what's up with that name? This is from their website. The creative journey revolves around the dichotomy of discipline and impulse, having the discipline to work hard and the impulse to go to places you and others haven't. The Greek gods, Apollo, which is discipline, and Dionysus, which is impulse, represent this dichotomy perfectly. Baron is derived from the Apollonian symbol of soldier, and Fig is a symbol of Dionysus. This Baron Fig is discipline and impulse.
Very cool. I never knew that.
So not many people did unless you read their website.
Right.
But anyway, so get to the point, Chris. You're boring us here. We're about ready to skip to the next podcast. There is a wonderfully made notebook that I got called the Confidant, and I got the larger version, which is 7x10, which is bigger than your typical Moleskine, Leuchtturm, or others. Your typical notebook, a 5x8 or 5.5 by 8.5.
Those, yeah.
I like having a little bit bigger size notebook to be able to jot my thoughts down. Taking that as my foundation, I'm using what is called a bullet journal, which could be considered a misnomer in a lot of ways because you're not really, as you've made mention offline, AJ, I'm not really journaling my thoughts and feelings in long form prose. This is rapid logging, which bulletjournal.com is a mechanism where you can have a customizable organization system for your month, your day, your tasks, your events, your thoughts, and how you can manage that within a analog notebook system. So I'm using Bullet Journal, and put a link in the show notes if you want to check that out. But also I added two more things to this equation of
awesome. Analog awesome.
Fair enough. There's a thing out there called the 5-minute journal, and basically the 5-minute journal gives you a couple prompts for what you can write down. In the morning, I do this twice. So I'm journaling or attempting to log my mind twice a day in the morning to kind of prep myself for the day. What are 3 things I'm grateful for? And just jot a few words down and stuff like that. What are 3 things I hope to accomplish today? And then what are 3 affirmations? Like I am caring. I am...
so primers, basically.
Primers, yes. Just to get you in the right mindset. You're thankful for stuff. Here's what you want to do. Here's who you are. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And it kind of, I've been doing this for a while. It's a good way to kickstart the day.
The 5-minute journal, isn't that by that, I can't think of his name, but he kind of lauds himself as a contemporary Stoic.
It's not by Ryan Holiday.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No, Ryan Holiday, however, is a great author. And if you happen to read a book called The Daily Stoic, it's an excellent...
he makes mention to it, though, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
Yeah.
I believe there's an intelligent... Squared. There's a website out there, and a link in the show notes. Go ahead and click on 5-minute journal, and it'll take you to that website where they have an actual journal pre-printed with all of the categories. So you just fill in the blanks. With the bullet journal, I'm able to have I do this within my little daily log. And in the evening, I use the 5-minute journal to kind of wrap up. What were 3 great things that happened today? And then what was one thing that could have made today better? By doing that, I'm kind of taking some time with a pen, and it's a 0.3 millimeter Pixma pen for those pen geeks out there.
That's pointy.
Pointy, pun intended.
Yeah.
And because you got to write small with these dot grid squares.
Right. You should mention the Baron Fig that you got is all of it is the dot matrix.
Dot grid, yes.
Dot grid stuff.
So most notebooks will either be plain page ruled with lines, or dot grid, which is just like a whole squarish grid. By having the squares to grid, my mind is a lot more drawn to that for the organization, where I get one line and I'm not doodling upwards with a slant with my handwriting or anything like that. So I've been really enjoying this process. And why Baron Fig? Why not Moleskin that you could pick up at Barnes & Noble or Village Books or some other bookstore? It's like, I wanted to try something different.
Yeah.
Everyone, and you know who you are, you have your customized cup of coffee. That 5 adjective, that cup of liquid awesome that you go in the drive-through at your particular store, you want your own customized setup. I want to go, first of all, support a company that I think is got their head in the right place. Mm-hmm. I like where they're headed with Baron Fig. And I don't want to be one of these connoisseur snobs of notebooks. I mean, I've tried out a lot of them.
Yeah.
Some of them have detachable pages. Some of them have cute designs.
Different tools for different
That's
people.
right. This is a charcoal, which is a dark gray, not quite black. I guess there is a color other than black.
There is another shade other than black.
Yeah, but a nice soft linen cover, very well done pages, and it just spoke to me. And I'm like, I'll make an investment in that, not only with my money but also my time and my thoughts.
No, when you busted this out, because I've seen them online, and you're right. The cover is that it's a dense nylon. It's not that rough nylon, so it's almost smooth.
Yes.
It's got a high contrast ribbon that you've got with the gray. It has it with this kind of faded orange, mustard yellow, which is kind of a nice pop of contrast. Mm-hmm. The thing that drew me in is when I busted it open, your cover sheet is kind of like this hard cardstock, but it's linen. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of your dot pages is a heavier, I don't know what the PSI is on this, but
it's archival quality.
Yeah, it's a heavier grain paper. I'd be curious to see how it would take like a fountain pen, honestly.
I know that they have reviews on it, and various fountain pens, your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
The pen that I'm using is a Pixma rollerball. It came in a pack of 6 because I wanted to, normal pens are ballpoint and your regular pens. I write big.
Yeah.
And this is conditioning myself to write smaller to be able to fit the square, the squarage.
Yeah.
In order to get these thoughts. And it's a great exercise in penmanship, to try to sit down on a flat desk instead of wherever I'm at on my lap while I'm walking, et cetera, et cetera. No, dedicate the time. Put in the time. You've got 5 minutes, 7 minutes during the morning to do this, or in the evening as you're doing your evening wrap-up routine before bed. Yeah. It's been fun, and it's a new challenge. And how many hours are my eyes in front of a screen? Yeah. Way too many. And here's a great way to not look at a screen yet. Engage some other synapses in my mind.
So riddle me this: when did the Baron land?
The Baron landed last week.
Okay, so you have a week of journal entries in this already?
A couple days.
Okay, so what's your reaction so far, kind of adopting this trifecta ideology that you've been building with this?
I like being able to catalog my mind in a way that doesn't involve inputting it into a to-do app or into a calendar. Now, my calendar is still sacrosanct. It is how I rely on my day. I rely on it for my day. Right. But this is mainly for memories. Like on the daily log, we had dinner with so-and-so friends. Mm-hmm. My wife did the dishes. We walked the dog. I went to the gym and did cardio. So here's a little bit of a log of some events. Not exactly at 9 a.m. I have this meeting with blah, blah, blah. This is a good way to highlight day's highlights. Mm-hmm. And when I have thoughts that come into my mind, I can use this instead of tapping out with my thumbs on a phone. I can triage this with AnaLOG and still have a record of it that I can reflect back on. The key word there is reflect. Yeah. You need to do this often. It's not just something you write it and then keep steamrolling ahead. You look back on the week. What did I accomplish? Hey, attaboy, look at all the stuff that got done. I like this as another way of quasi-affirmation for here's what I did. And I was able to accomplish a lot. Because I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, but have you had work days or work weeks or work months where you are going full blast, but it doesn't seem like you accomplished anything?
Anything's done, yeah.
Right. This will give you a visible list of look at all the stuff that I did or the memories that occurred.
Yeah, and to chime in on that, like the part of my background in education is about reflection. Like for an effective educator to actually get stuff built in to their curriculum to have insight learning and discourse and all this other jazz. The big thing is as an educational practitioner, we have to reflect on what we have done and reflect what we see in the output of our students. This is basically boiling that to a one-to-one ratio. You are putting in at the beginning of the day as a primer, at the end of the day, again, as a recap, and then at the end of the week, you're doing basically evaluation. Like you're evaluating your output from a more humanistic standpoint, as opposed to what we kind of get into the rut of is Outlook calendar. I have this appointment to this appointment, this person has a consult, and then boom, 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 boom. Get to the end of the day, you're exhausted, and then what did I do again today? It brings more of that human element, and that's kind of the binding thread through this podcast today is basically AnaLOG, logging humanity using these tools, as opposed to dehumanizing us using digital tech.
Absolutely, and the challenge for me as I evaluate or reflect, it's reflection without admonition. And because I beat myself up when things don't go well.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, and so here's where it's like, here's what I did. Here's what could be improved upon. It's that Kaizen mentality, always be improving.
Right.
And this is it's a wonderful process. And why not start on January 1st with a brand new notebook? Well, it's the weekend of July 23rd. So you know what? What better time?
Halfway through the year.
Yes, just about halfway through the year. You're right. And so why not start now? Don't wait for something, folks. Friends, boys and girls, children of all ages, do it now.
Yeah. The whole New Year's resolution thing is just hype. Like it's just a marker point. You can make that marker point whatever you feel comfortable with.
Exactly.
And on top of that, this is a quote new piece of technology. You just got it, so why not start implementing it?
Guess what? My yearly, monthly calendar starts in July. I started there instead of January 1st. Well, you know what? I've got 200 some pages in this notebook. It could end in March 2019 for the way I may log stuff, or it could end in 4 months, depending on how verbose this is. We'll, stay tuned for another BPM in the future for updates.
Which, speaking of staying tuned, if you're listening to us in the Bellingham area, might be on KMRE 102.3 FM, Low Power Community Radio here in Bellingham, Washington.
The MRE stands for Museum of Radio and Electricity.
And it being over the air is our little dovetail into AnaLOG still.
Yes. A very nice segue that we didn't even plan that. That was great. It's one of those serendipitous things. Yep. Speaking of serendipitous, I don't know where that came from. But anyway, AJ, you got something on your wrist that looks different and is different than a typical thing in your arsenal.
Right. So for about 18 months, maybe even a little bit longer, I have been hunting for a watch, which I know everybody's probably gasping.
Our shocked face.
But this, unfortunately, is not a new watch, or it's not a. It is something that is off the beaten path because it is vintage, and anybody in the watch fam that's listening to this, they're probably going, yes, he finally got a vintage piece, because most of my stuff is contemporary, short of heirlooms that I've inherited. But this is one that I've been actively seeking since my wife, I think, showed me a pin on Pinterest because she was looking for a watch for me. She's like, this would be really cool for you. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's from like 1969, 70, 71. She goes, you should go find it. So I started looking, and out of it, I actually got a different watch. I bought a contemporary watch in Ingersoll, which you've seen on my wrist, and it's been a BPM cover before, but this is an old Seiko Navigator timer. It's a GMT.
What does GMT stand for?
GMT is just a way to track a secondary time zone. It's a 24-hour bezel of some sort that goes outside of the watch. It stands for Greenwich Mean Time. And so you have 12 and 24-hour time, allows you to track a second time zone. There is another version of it that's called a WorldTimer, where you have alternating cities around the world around your bezel. Basically, you set it based off the 24 hand, and you can calculate all the other cities around the world.
Interesting.
That's another one that I'm hoping to find, and that'll be another adventure or exploration anyway.
But the one on your wrist now
is a GMT, and it is a Seiko 6117-6410. And what that basically means is the 6117 is the caliber. It's a 6117A or B. I don't know yet because I haven't really dove into the movement that much yet. And the 6410 is the style of the case and the dial. It is a GMT that was built, best that I can tell so far. I won't be able to figure it out exactly until I actually rip the bezel off. It's an internal bezel. I'm guessing it was built in 72. And what's cool about this watch is I got it at auction. It is a hard to find. It's an uncommon. I wouldn't say it's rare. A lot of people say, oh, super rare. No, it's just uncommon. And what's interesting is I did not get it in what's called safe queen condition. This is not something that was sitting in a safe that somebody is sitting on as an investment, like you see a lot of people buying Pateks and all this other jazz. This has been worn.
It's a daily driver.
It is a daily driver. I was able to acquire it through a seller in Mexico. It flew in, and it is in exact condition that I was hoping it would be in. This has seen some years. What's cool is the dial is in good looking condition. The hands, best I can tell, are actually original, short of the GMT. So that tells me that somebody's worked on it. I was able to crack open the back and take a look on the inside. And
when you say rip and crack, you're scaring me because I know that you're
Yes.
gentle and delicate
Yes.
with it, but when you're using these vernacular, they're just kind of like, no, dude, don't do that.
No. So full disclosure, I am a watch tinkerer. I'm not a watchmaker.
And you crack open watch backs.
I do. But anyway, taking a look at the movement is clean. By today's standards, it's a faux GMT because as you rotate the 12-hour, the hour and minute, it is in a fixed location. So you have to rotate a bezel to make it line up to the secondary time zone. As opposed to a true GMT where you actually have a jumping hour on the 24 hand. What's cool about this is this movement is not made anymore by Seiko. And it's such a simple, minimal complication that is effective. I have friends around the world. Right now it's set to Paris time. So at the time of this recording, it is just about 5 a.m. in Paris. Bonjour. And what's cool is that like this is something that any watch nerd will tell you. It is hard to get a good GMT watch at an affordable price. And I was able to get this at a steal. Bear in mind that I'm going to be restoring it, so I'm going to be putting some more into it. The crystal has a minor crack in it. The bezel, internal bezel, the paint is flaking off. But the movement is actually keeping better time than my Seiko SKX 007. And this watch is 40 years old, Chris. Name me one other piece of technology that is 40 years old that would be that effective.
I was born a year after this watch came out, so I'm a piece of tech that is over 40 years old.
Okay, I'll keep that. But that's the thing is that like when we talk about the new shiny,
like Apple Watches,
or iPhones or Android phones or Pixels, in 40 years they're going to be Amiga status. They're going to be Apple IIe status. Yes, they are cool in museums, but they're really not effective as tools anymore. And yet things like journals and watches, they stand the test of time if they're maintained. And from what I can tell, this had no service record, no papers. But I can tell whoever was the watchmaker that worked on this, because I can tell it has been worked on, they did an excellent job. It's keeping great time. and nothing's been borked so far. But anyway, I have a couple of notes in the show notes if you want to really take a look at this. It is derived from the 6217-7000, which is coveted among Seiko aficionados because it was the watch of the Asia Games, the Tokyo Olympics. And that was a WorldTimer built in the 60s. It was very round. When the late 60s came about, 69, 70, they went to this kind of more, I'll call it more of a turtle style case where it's more elongated. And out of that, we get the 6117-8000, which was basically the same watch that you're looking at here, Chris, but instead of an internal bezel, it's an outside bezel like our divers, like our SKX 007s.
There may be a picture to compare and contrast on our podcast cover art.
Yeah, there will probably be one now that I see what we're staging. What's interesting about that is that has no hacking lever. And what a hacking lever is, when you pull the crown out, it stops a second so that you can sync it up to an atomic clock.
Very good. From
my understanding, the 6117-8000 did not have that one because that was built in 69. Later, we get the 6117-6400, which is the WorldTimer version. It's an homage that kind of tributes back to the 6217. Anyway, the one that I have is the 6117-6410. Which gets back into the inner bezel and a hacking lever. So as I pull the crown out, it hacks, which our SKX 007s don't even do that. This movement, Seiko stopped manufacturing it, and it's a shame because it's such a simple, uncomplicated approach to getting a second or even a WorldTimer complication. Now, a little bit of history. And if you're a Seiko buff, you may have noticed on vintage Seikos, you have a whole bunch of stuff on the dial. Like mine, for instance, says Seiko Automatic, and then below it says Navigator Timer. And it says water resistant, 70 meters resistant, which tells me it was made after 1969-70 because pre that, they were not stamped with the 70 meters water resistant. Then you'll see a little bit of... looks like swooshes. The two common ones that you will see in vintage watches, they look very similar. One looks like two check marks opposing each other. Very, very striking. And I mean striking that in literal, it looks like a lightning bolt. That is actually, and I might be, I apologize, I might be slaughtering my translation in Japanese, Daini Seikosha, which is basically you see two double triangles in the form of a lightning bolt. So if you see that logo, what happened in the late 60s is that Seiko decided to have internal competition in between two divisions. So the lightning bolt faced off with Suwa, Seikosha, which is a Swirl, and that's the one that I have. Out of those two shops, through competition, you get great design because in these two competitive divisions of Seiko, they could not share designs. They could not share tech. They could not share anything through the entire line. Seiko wanted these two divisions to basically fight over the best design and manufacturing process. And out of the 60s and 70s, you see some of Seiko's best design works that I've seen in the Seiko Museum that just stand the test of time. Our SKX 007 comes out of the 62 Mas. But these two logos, take a look at them. If you ever look at vintage Seikos, you'll find those two little icons. And there's several others that would come later in Seiko's history. But it was a really cool business choice to do this. You have some of the best micro manufacturing in Japan at the time. And you decide to take two divisions and say, we want you to do the best of the best. You can't crib off each other. Go. And we get things like the Grand Seiko. We get high beat movements out of Japan. Out of this, Seiko got better products. And this is where the Swiss market started really looking at Japan going, uh-oh, these guys are producing things that were, when this watch was made, because I actually found the original brochure, in 71, 72, this came out in 1972 for $75, which we did a calculation.
It was about, factoring in inflation, modern times about $470.
Yeah, this was a $470 aviation tool with some water resistance in it. If you look at Rolexes at the time, Rolexes I think were going for, don't quote me on this because I'm not a Rolex aficionado, about $200 to 1970s money. So there was a big gap, and again, it was an effective tool for certain demographics of people. So a little bit of history there, and I'm really nerding out about it. I got links in the show notes. There's a really cool article I found, and I should have started there. I was doing some research on the forums and stuff because there's a whole bunch of Japanese watch forums, and I was doing all this research, and then I was like, I wonder if Worn and Wound did an article. Sure enough, they did. I should have started there. So I have a link to the Worn and Wound article that talks a little bit about these two manufacturing plants underneath the Seiko brand.
I love the fact, and as much as I'm a white belt when it comes to the watch history and watch horology field, I can equate a lot of what you're enjoying right now with a 1968 Fender Strat.
Oh yeah,
and a classic guitar or a classic bass, and to get that, there's a YouTube video that I saw of the Fender shop where this guy is hand rubbing a guitar body. It was really pristine, and all the stuff. This lady was soldering the pickups in there. This is quality work that's being done 40 some years ago.
Yeah,
good get.
Yeah, it's cool. And as a collector, like, I'm not one of these people that just buys it because I want it to sit in a safe. Like, I got this because I could tell through the listing and the pictures, the movement was good.
Oh, yeah.
And so this would be the equivalent of you find an old Fender Strat and the body looks good, needs a little bit of love, but those pickups are perfect.
Yep, they're Hendrix S.
Yep. And so I'm going to be replacing the crystal and doing some restoration on this guy and,
Awesome.
and wear it hopefully another 40 years.
Stay tuned for a future BPM tech where that might actually grace the cover.
Maybe.
All right.
So, Chris, it's time for our favorite little segment.
That's right. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Tech that caught our eye.
Yeah. So, Chris, I believe you have a little something that or at least tech service that caught your eye.
This isn't exactly technology, but it's something that you can do on the web to help with your life. We all have mailing addresses, and I'm not talking about email. We have the snail mail that you pull open the mailbox and you get whatever's inside there.
Junk mail and bills.
There you go. And back a few years ago, Netflix DVDs. And
I love that little red envelope.
Exactly. So United States Postal Service, good on them. I give you a tip of the hat because you're trying to explore areas of innovation. And one of these areas of innovation that the USPS is doing right now is that if you create an account, a free account with USPS.com, get your email address, and you acknowledge and kind of verify yourself as who you are as associated with your mailing address with a little bit of back history, like which streets did you used to live at, blah, blah, blah. You can get what's called informed delivery.
Tell me more.
Informed delivery lets you know what is going to be in your snail mailbox before it arrives.
So what, the USPS just tweets me what's in my mail?
Not tweet. It will send you an email with some digital pictures of the parcels of mail that will be entering into your box.
Whoa, so like they scan the envelope?
I'm not sure what they're doing right now. It's a fairly new service.
Right.
I signed up for it just recently. In fact, about 2 hours before we recorded this.
Okay. It's fresh in the show notes. Got it.
It's really fresh. But it takes the surprise out of discovering what is waiting for you when you open up your mailbox. But if you happen to see junk mail or other types of things, you may not have to check your mailbox at this time. It's kind of known in advance. Ooh, got that delivery from blah, 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 blah. I got to, make sure that I get home and do that. This could be a pretty cool service that you get via your email. We have a clickable link in our show notes, but if you Google USPS informed past tense delivery, pretty cool service you might want to check out.
That's cool.
And for you, AJ?
So this is a very watch-centric episode. Sorry, everyone.
You're kidding me.
So for the Watch fam, an update. A couple episodes back, we talked about a Kickstarter. Again, Kickstarter is not a store. However, this project called Sequent, it was the, quote, first kinetic drive smartwatch. A little update from them, because I said, if they hit that 500,000 mark, they'll look at doing loom dials and stuff, but who knows, right? At the time of this recording, with 21 days left to go, again, they wanted about $83,000 to get this project off the ground. They're funded at $445, wait for it, $1,000.
A 5X.
5X.
Yep.
I'd have to look back. I think we reported on them, 2 weeks ago, so two podcasts ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And they have 21 more days to go.
Well, they got 9 days in for the 30-day Kickstarter fund with 21 days to go as of today.
So kind of like the whole Baron Fig, like sourcing people, getting a lot of feedback, and getting the creative juices going. There is definitely a lot of passion out there for bridging this whole analog and digital divide. Like, this watch is kind of one of those things that's kind of pointing out, hey, we're inundated by screens. Let's get it back down to the basics, kind of like a simplistic approach to a GMT. What's the best, smartest, fastest tool for the job? I'm keeping my eye on this. Like I said, I haven't backed it. Again, Kickstarter's not a store. It's kind of a barometer for me.
Absolutely. And with some of the features on it, you may want to check out Sequent. We've got a link in the show notes. This could be something that you may want to invest in.
Yeah.
Should you be enjoying what's going on.
Right. So that wraps up for this edition of BPM Tech. Thank you again so much for rating us, reviewing us on the Google Play, on the SoundCloud, on the Spreaker. That's the one that says speaker but has an R in the middle of it, or anywhere else you podcast. If you are in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Community radio here in Bellingham, Washington. From the city by the Sailor Sea, I am AJ Barce.
And I'm not AJ Barce. I'm Chris Powell. Thanks again for listening to us on BPM Tech.
But I approve that message.
Me too.